What a lot of people have heard, sometimes in passing, sometimes in school, is that there was a historic alliance between Black Americans and the Jewish American community. But the reality is more complex than that. Black Americans have had moments of alignment with different groups throughout history, but those alliances have often been temporary, based on overlapping interests at a specific time, not permanent, and not necessarily rooted in long-term shared outcomes. Let's start earlier. When slavery was abolished in the United States, it was framed primarily as a moral issue. But slavery was also one of the largest economic systems in the country. Entire industries, cotton, tobacco, agriculture, shipping, insurance, manufacturing, were built on it. If abolition had been treated as a full economic issue, there could have been widespread boycotts and financial pressure against industries profiting from slavery. That didn't happen at scale. And because of that, the economic foundation of inequality largely remained intact even after slavery ended. Now fast forward, as Jewish immigrants were fleeing persecution in Europe and arriving in the United States in the late 1800s and early 1900s, Black Americans were entering one of the most oppressive periods in U.S. history: Jim Crow, segregation, and systemic exclusion. There were moments where interests aligned. Some Jewish individuals and organizations supported aspects of the civil rights movement. Some Black leaders also stood against anti-Semitism. These moments of cooperation were often rooted in shared experiences of discrimination and a desire to challenge certain forms of injustice. But alignment doesn't always mean equal outcomes. Economically, many Jewish immigrants were able to establish businesses, including in predominantly Black neighborhoods, while Black Americans were often blocked from ownership opportunities due to systemic barriers like redlining, lack of access to capital, and discriminatory policies. At the same time, Black cultural influence, especially in music, sports, and entertainment, grew significantly, and industries were built around those spaces, often with ownership structures that did not reflect Black control over the economic benefits. As the civil rights movement progressed, priorities began to shift. Many Black leaders began emphasizing not just legal rights, but economic power, ownership, control of resources, and self-determination within Black communities. But there were differing perspectives on what the path forward should be. Some allies, including segments within the Jewish American community and broader liberal coalitions, strongly supported integration, access into existing systems, as the primary solution. And this is where tension comes in. There has been criticism from some Black thinkers and leaders that integration, while important, did not address the deeper issue of economic independence, and that some groups encouraging integration maintained strong internal economic networks and community cohesion within their own communities. That raised a real question: is access enough if ownership is still missing? By the mid to late 20th century, many Jewish Americans had gained broader access to economic and political systems in the U.S., while Black Americans continued to face structural barriers to wealth, ownership, and long-term economic mobility. At the same time, movements like Black Power began to emphasize self-determination more strongly, and that shift caused some previous alliances to weaken or change. Today, the idea of a Black-Jewish alliance is often oversimplified. The relationship has included cooperation, tension, shared struggles, and differing priorities, sometimes all at once. And it's important to understand that neither the Black community nor the Jewish community is a monolith.